You guys are ahead. Oop. And I've got mom cutting through, of course.
No, the horse is at the door.
Oh, at the garage door?
Yes.
What? Okay. All right. Well, we've got mom coming through now. Probably getting her friend. Anyway, we go for the first 5 minutes here. Everybody saying hi, so say hi. I am live on YouTube as well. Hey, YouTubers. Sorry, I was dealing with TikTok and mom. Puerto Rico. You guys know how this works. Just introduce yourselves, where you are from, if you would. What's up, Aravosis? Not much. Safety pin. Oh, and now the dogs are going to go nuts because mom is opening the garage door. Lovely. I know. It's always more fun. I'm visiting mom for several weeks, and we therefore get the cinema verite of mom and the dogs. So anyway, guys, we're the first 5 minutes we hang out and wait for folks to zoom in, so ignore the barking. But oh my god. Okay. All right. Anyway, hi everybody. The dogs will be done in a second here. But we wait first 5 minutes, everybody introduce yourselves, and then we'll start at 5 after. This is all right. Okay. That was fun. That was fun. Okay. Hey. There we go. Well, that'll stop coming in a minute. Woo. Yes, the dogs do get to be part of the show, whether I want them to or not. So lovely. Belgium. Excellent. What else we got here? Canada, Wales, lovely. All right. Well, they've calmed down at least. I know, Sasha the Defender. Anthony from Ireland, Florida, UK. Ooh, Masshole. You guys always correct me up with that. Florida, Alaska. What else we got here? Edinburgh, nice. Latvia. I saw a nice little story about Latvia today. A little boy, a 6-year-old boy, who gave his life savings away to a volunteer who was helping the Ukrainian refugees because he didn't want the Ukrainian refugees to die. Hold on. Now I've got to... My mom, when she's leaving, thought it would be nice to shut the door, which now means I'm going to have dogs inside the room going nuts for an hour and a half trying to get out. So one moment, please. We start at 5 after, folks. This is our soft launch. This is where we have all the fun with the dogs. All right, there you go, with the dogs and everything else. All right, I'm going to do a quick wipe of the screen. Boom. All right. Oh, my. Already an exciting day with mom and the dogs visiting and the neighbor visiting us. Oh, my gosh. Anyway, yeah, but Latvia was very sweet. So this little boy, this little 6-year-old boy gave his life savings to a volunteer because he heard that people were dying in Ukraine and he didn't want them to die. It was the most like, oh. And apparently I've heard that the mayor of Kyiv already reached out to the Latvians and said he wants to know who the kid is, wants to thank him, that kind of stuff, which I think is really sweet. And everybody online is like, oops, sorry, microphone. Everybody online is like, where's the kid's GoFundMe? We'll give him his life savings back. It was cute too, because it was like a little jar like this of money. It was the most adorable thing, probably had $5, $10 in it. Absolutely adorable. Or what, $5 worth of Latvian. Anyway, guys, we go for another 2 minutes. We always start the show like this and just have folks introduce themselves. And that way it gives Sweden. Sverige? I once tried to learn to pronounce Sweden when I was in Sweden and never got it down. I can recognize it, though. Thank you for the heart, Rue. Oh, it was very sweet, though. Oh, glasses on top of glasses. Thank you, Big Hawk. All right, guys, another minute. And we'll start. I know GoFundMe for the kid would be adorable. Absolutely adorable. We got a good crowd today. Glad to see. Hey, everybody. We're going to start in 1 minute. We just take a little time for folks to meander in. Oh, boy. Finland. Welcome. And welcome, if you know what I mean, Finland. Hope we give you a bigger welcome shortly. Lithuania. Good to see you. Carolina. All right, guys. I think we can start. All right. I'm John Aravosis. Hey, y'all. I'm in Chicago visiting mom for a few weeks, which had you made it exactly at the hour, you would have heard the dogs going crazy because, again, visiting mom. Thank you for that, Booty. Or Buddy? Body? Booty. Booty. Is this a Booty? So the way this works is I'm going to go about 20 minutes or so giving you the latest news, telling you what I think is important in today's news about Ukraine. And then at the end, we do question. I said to the end, it's still kind of at the beginning. We'll do a question and answer. That's going to go all the way. Thank you for the dog, for the corgi, and the hat. That's going to go all the way until quarter after the next hour. And that way, usually it's a good 45 minutes of questions and answers. People usually find it really interesting and helpful. What else? The questions, when we get to it, on TikTok, submit your questions via the Q&A box that's at the bottom of the screen, because that way your questions come up in a row and it's much more easier for me to see them. Usually there's like 90 plus questions, so it really helps. Thank you for the little birds. And on YouTube, you guys know, put your questions in the box at the bottom. And as always, for folks who want to support my work more, I appreciate it. You can buy those fun little things on TikTok that someday I'm going to find the name, but all those silly hats and mustaches and glasses you buy, actually, it gives some money to TikTok, fair enough, but it actually helps me. It actually, every time you do that, thank you. It gets a little more money in my pocket, which helps me because I'm doing this full time. So you're literally helping me keep doing this, and I very much appreciate it. Same for the super stickers and the super questions. Final issue, the super questions on YouTube. I am going to, I always get to those first. So if you do a super question, I will try to get to it as the next issue, even if we're not at Q&A, because it's my thank you for you to doing super questions. Let's dive in, guys. At the end, I'll do a little thing on Roe v. Wade, because that's obviously a huge story. And but I'll talk about it as the very final issue, because I'm thinking eventually I probably will, once Ukraine wins the war, knock on wood, I will move this into a more general news broadcast. So we might as well occasionally, big blockbuster stories like the Supreme Court thing, we can't avoid. So let's jump right in. There's been lots of shelling nationwide in Russia. Big surprise. Thank you for the double whammy on TikTok there. Triple whammy. Quadruple. Thank you, guys. You're putting up so many, I can't thank you quickly enough. Lots of shelling nationwide by the Russians. There was massive shelling of the town of Lviv, eastern Russia. Has not seen combat other than shelling from the Russians. Thank you for the origami. The Lviv saw... Oh, boy. Somebody's not happy. Come here, you. Come here, you. I can help you. Oh, my gosh. My dog is itching, and my dog is the most expressive human being on the planet. So she was itching her ear and couldn't figure it wasn't working. So she's going, okay, you know what? We're going to have a special appearance at the beginning of the broadcast. We never do this. This is Sasha, everybody. I know, don't worry. I finally realized that Sasha does not like to look there because that's the phone. The TikTok folks are on the phone. See, you guys on YouTube, you're relatively safe, but the phone, she's always afraid of the flash going off. There you go, my girl. Oh my gosh, such a good girl. Such a good girl. I'm still not playing with you. No, we're not playing. Anyway, let me see here. So, so the bombing. So Lviv got hit the hardest it's ever been hit in the war yet. Big town in the west of Ukraine. Interestingly, the Russians were going after electrical infrastructure. Thank you for the hat and the mustache. And it seems, I just learned before you really? No, we're not playing right now. No, we just started. I'm not playing right now. The Russians were hitting electrical infrastructure that deals with trains. It's the electrical infrastructure that powers the trains, which I thought was very interesting. So they seem to be increasingly going after the infrastructure trains, because trains in the West, what are they doing? They're helping move troops, but especially ammunition, probably some of the large weapons the West is sending, all that kind of stuff, right? Thank you for is that a badger? I'm not even sure, a squirrel. The Pentagon latest update. Oh, that's very pretty. I'd not seen that before. Thank you on TikTok. The Pentagon's latest update on the Russians' offensive says in the East that it is anemic and plodding, 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 and it is slowed. This is interesting. It has been slowed by a risk-averse approach designed to avoid the heavy casualties that Moscow's troops suffered in the first phase of the war. In other words, the Russians are holding back. They lost so many men at the beginning that now they're being much more cautious, and it has stopped them from advancing in this next phase. Now, what's interesting is I then, after that, found an article in the New York Times that was saying a similar thing, that the Russians were holding back, that Putin was holding back, and why was he holding back? Now, let me read this to you to give you a sense of what holding back is, because I'm sure a lot of people are going, what do you mean holding back? He's blowing up Ukraine, right? Killed a lot of people. But this is something I've raised before. But let me read this to you. So Russia could be going after the Ukrainian railways, roads, and bridges more aggressively to try to staunch the flow of Western weapons to the front line. I did see glasses there, thank you, or the Borg thing. It could have bombed more of the infrastructure around the capital, Kyiv, to make it harder for Western leaders to visit President Zelensky in shows of unity and resolve. And it could be doing far more to inflict pain on the West, whether by cyber attacks, sabotage, or more cutoffs of energy exports to Europe. Next paragraph, and this is the final paragraph that I was going to read. American and European officials say that President Putin's tactics in recent weeks have appeared to be remarkably cautious, marked by a slow-moving offensive in eastern Ukraine, a restrained approach to taking out Ukrainian infrastructure, and an avoidance of actions that could escalate the conflict with NATO. Now, what they're talking about is, I mean, as an American, I paid close attention to what was going on with the invasion of Iraq, both times. And both times, the U.S. came in with lots of planes and just blew things up for days. I mean, but went after the infrastructure, went after the troops, just softened up everything they could with planes. Russia never got the air superiority, but I'm also not clear whether Russia tried to get the air superiority in the beginning, right? I mean, it's not really clear. They never went in and got the infrastructure in the beginning. They didn't blow up the trains. They didn't blow up the roads. They didn't blow the cities. I mean, they went after Mariupol. And they're kind of going, I mean, not kind of, they're going after Kyiv. Thank you, Bistov, for that. But Kiev, I'm not Kyiv, Kharkiv, second largest city in the east. But Kyiv itself, they went after it, but not much. It's not like they went there and destroyed all the federal buildings. I thought they were being restrained for Russia, that they had enough cruise missiles, they would have just made every city look like Mariupol, right, level to the ground. They didn't. And what this is saying, well, this is kind of asking why. And I'm not sure why. There's one analysis, which I think the U.S. is putting out there, is that Putin is so freaked out from all the deaths that now he's literally trying to minimize the Russian deaths going forward. Now, why Putin would care about the Russian deaths, I'm not entirely sure, because that's not really typical of their government to say, oh boy, we lost a lot of boys, right? I mean, when they had the sailors that were dying on the Kursk, that submarine, 20 years ago, Putin couldn't care. Putin stayed on vacation when these guys were trapped in the submarine and dying, and they ended up dying because Putin just didn't want to rescue them. So I'm not sure. I just wanted to throw it out there, but I thought that was interesting. Thank you, Sean, for that. 150 more civilians were released from Mariupol to Ukrainian-controlled territory. Thank you, Sharon. You guys have asked previously with Mariupol whether the people being released had returned to Ukrainian-controlled territory or were getting carted off to Russia. It seems these groups are going to Ukraine. I don't want to say Ukraine because Mariupol is Ukraine, but Ukrainian-controlled territory. So that's a good thing. The Ukrainians are saying that there's still about 200 civilians left in that steel factory where everyone's holding out. Obviously, the 1,000 troops are still there. The troops aren't getting out, but the civilians are. But the Ukrainians also know that there are another 100,000 civilians still trapped in the town of Mariupol. And the Russians are doing nothing to let those people out. And in fact, they're stopping them. Was that Oreos? I'm not sure. The origami. Thank you. The Russians are stopping the Ukrainians from leaving. We've got stories like the one I published from the Ukrainian who finally escaped. Literally, they're stopping them every time they try to leave the city. They literally turn them away with guns and say, oh, it's too dangerous. They just won't let them leave. And if they do leave, they force them to go to Russia. That's another story I'm going to tell you in a second. The U.S. ambassador to the OSCE, Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Michael Carpenter, told a CNN reporter that the filtration camps are reportedly used for processing Ukrainian civilians before they are sent to Russia. They're still operating 4 Russian filtration camps in and around Mariupol. Remember I was saying they weren't letting them out? They've got 4 of these camps around Mariupol, and they process people. They pretty much strip you down, look for tattoos, because tattoos are signs that you're Nazis. It's ridiculous. Interrogate you, go through your phone, hook your phone up to a device that reads it for 20 minutes, and I don't even know what for, probably looks at your contacts, and they're trying to find contacts that are Nazis or contacts that are connected one step away to ridiculous stuff, right? Thank you, Just Janice. And in any case, the 100,000 people that are remaining are still having to go through all of this BS. So it ain't great. The Pope, this was really annoying. This really ticked me off. I saw this about an hour before the show tonight. And the Pope, who's been pretty good, he hasn't really wanted to criticize Russia, but he's been, pretty good. Well, the Pope says today that, he pretty much blamed, thank you, Pamela, he pretty much blamed NATO for Russia invading Ukraine. And he said that NATO has been, quote, barking at Russia's door in nearby countries. And he would not go so far as to say NATO provoked Russia, but it, quote, perhaps facilitated the invasion. You know, when you're in the middle of a genocide, you don't make excuses for the genocidal maniac. You don't say, it's understandable why he invaded, right? I mean, it's not unfair of him to have invaded. I mean, it's basically, again, I'm not going to say you provoked him, but you facilitated the invasion. In other words, I mean, you're making excuses for the guy's invasion, and the guy's invasion was illegal. The guy's invasion was to literally eliminate a country and a people, and we now know that there were horrific war crimes and genocide during this invasion. And I'm sorry, but the Pope is making excuses for it. Really ticked me off. He also added when asked, because remember he'd been talking about going to Kyiv possibly. It's on his mind the last 2 or 3 weeks. He goes through and he goes, the going to Kyiv, I don't have it written down here, but going to Kyiv is no longer on the agenda unless he goes to Moscow first. And people are like, why do you need to go to Moscow first? Why can't you just go to Kyiv? But so this guy, forget it. Whatever. I've always had a mixed view on the Catholic Church, and well, they're back. So that was really fun. Zelensky today in an interview with the Wall Street Journal, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, said that Russia has to pay reparations. Now, this was very interesting. He said Russia has to pay reparations for the war to end, and he demanded Crimea back. Now, what's interesting to me, and Eastern Ukraine, but Crimea. What is interesting to me with this, thank you, Ashley. What is interesting to me with this is a more extreme position than Zelensky was holding when the negotiations were happening several weeks ago. Remember? Right before Bucha and everything else kind of blew it up. But they were negotiating, and for example, on Crimea, first of all, reparations were not mentioned that I know of. Then on Crimea, you had Zelensky saying the Ukrainian proposal was we'll let Crimea go unsettled for 15 years and we'll negotiate during those 15 years. In other words, from my perspective, the Ukrainians were willing to basically give away Crimea for 15 years and maybe in the future someday we'll get it back. That's a far cry from you're going to pay us reparations and you're giving us back Crimea. You are seeing Ukraine now negotiating from a position of strength that they did not totally feel they were in before, even though they did well in those first couple of weeks. We are now seeing a 100% commitment from NATO in the West. The West is now committed to Ukraine winning the war, which I do not think they were before. Thank you, Kanausi. As I said before, I think the West was... I always quote that Republican congressman who said that basically NATO wanted Ukraine to lose slowly in the beginning. So stop. They were giving them weapons so that they wouldn't lose immediately, but they'd lose more slowly and it would hurt Russia in the meantime. And the dogs are now trying to play next to me as I talk to you. This is the ongoing joy. Standing on your back legs is adorable, but it won't get me to play with you. No, I'm trying to actually find her BALL. You know what? We lost it this time again. Sorry, kiddo. I don't have it. Sorry. These are the wonders of doing my podcast, of doing my thing with you guys. I've got to, here we go. It's like doing Zoom calls at home. It's sort of the same idea. There we go. Okay. I'm giving her ball, but I'm not throwing it twice. You're getting it now. Sasha's ball is reserved for the end of the show. We don't do it in the middle of the show. Zelensky, anyway, it's interesting because his negotiating point is hardening up. Thank you, Duke. It's hardening up. And I thought that's really interesting because it shows that he now perceives himself. Oh, silly Russian bot. You're not coming back. Oh, yeah. Sunflowers, folks. We've got a Russian bot here. We got a Russian bot. Sunflowers. We've got a Russian bot on our YouTube. He's saying glory to Russia. Remember, whenever we have the Russians come in, and we give lots of little sunflowers in the air. So there you go. Thank you. TikTok and YouTube. I've got TikTok there and I've got YouTube there, just so you know, while I'm always going back and forth. Many sunflowers for our Russian bot. Thank you all. And the tractors. Oh, that was good. Carol just threw in Ukrainian tractors on the screen as well. That was very good. And Ashley's giving fireworks. Thank you, Ashley. So anyway, my point of that was just very interesting that that Zelensky and the Ukrainians are taking a much harder position in negotiations now, which is great. And it shows the fact that Russia's doing worse and Ukraine is doing better. And Ukraine now knows it can count on the long-term support of the West, which it wasn't so sure about before. All good things. Israel, this got interesting. This got fascinating in the last day. So, sip of water. So Israel, you know that Israel's been kind of meh on this whole thing, right? Kind of hanging out in the middle, right? Pamela, thank you. You know, that's one of my favorites, the galaxy. That and the hats are my favorites. Israel's been not supporting Ukraine, not supporting Russia. They understandably have some concerns, security issues with Russia. To do some of their security stuff they do flying around the Middle East, they've got to fly over Russian territory in Syria and stuff, and they pretty much need Russia's permission to do it. Well, at least Russia not to say we're going to shoot you down or whatever, right? Although, frankly, at this point, I don't think Russia could beat Israel either. If Russia can't beat Ukraine, they're certainly not going to be able to beat Israel. Nonetheless, so Israel's been kind of playing both sides of this conflict. And what happens? The other day, but there's the Russians came back and said something incredibly stupid last night. So that's why, that's what I'm leading up to here. So the other day, the Russians, get asked about Zelensky. And they're saying, he's Jewish. How can you call him a Nazi if he's Jewish? And Lavrov, who's the Russian foreign minister, says, well, Hitler had Jewish blood too, so he can be a Nazi. And the other quote from Lavrov, hold on, I've got to find the exact quote here. Everybody knows that some of the worst anti-Semites are Jews. Thank you, Pamela, for that. Well, Israel responded and was not happy. They were like, no, everybody does not know that the worst anti-Semites are Jews. And it wasn't the Jews behind the Holocaust. It was the Nazis who killed Jews in Nazi Germany. It wasn't the Jews who killed Jews in Nazi Germany. Oh, it's sorry. I do see your guys' questions backing up. I will get to them in a sec. Thank you, Eduit, for that. May get that one wrong. So I'll get to your questions, I promise, after this Israel thing, but this was too good. So Israel responds and says, no, that's not true. Russia then responds, rather than getting the picture and saying, okay, maybe I shouldn't get into a pissing war with Israel about anti-Semitism because Israel will win. And Russia, mind you, is a supremely anti-Semitic country. I mean, going back years that Russia's had a problem with anti-Semitism. So Russia comes back and says that Israel's position that that Jews were not behind the Holocaust and the Jews were not the mass murderers is ahistorical, meaning it runs against history, and Israel's lack of understanding of the true history of the Holocaust. In other words, this ahistorical view where Israel doesn't understand the Holocaust, quote, explains the support the current government of Israel has offered the neo-Nazi regime in Kyiv. So in other words, the Russians told the Israeli government that the fact that the Israelis really don't understand the history of the Holocaust explains why the Israeli government are such supporters of Nazis. I mean, it's insane, but also the last people you want to piss off are the Israelis. Now, the Israelis have been playing both sides here, but Andrew, thank you for that. They also threw in for good measure. This was my favorite thing. The Russians also threw in and they said, and it's very crafty of Zelensky to try to use the fact that he's Jewish to get out of being a Nazi. Well, as you can imagine, talking about crafty Jews and how wily they are and slippery is kind of one of the biggest anti-Semitic things you can say. I mean, I'm laughing because it's just like, it's the biggest self-own the Russians could do. If they want to help us guarantee that Israel finally takes sides, I can't think of a better way to do it, because now we're entering World War II territory, and I will say this as a final point, my editorial comment on this, I'm a big supporter of Israel. I actually am. But Israel should be the first country that understands that when you're looking at genocide, you don't say, well, what are my strategic interests? Because it kind of benefits me to have a good relationship with the genocidal maniac. Israel would not be so happy had countries taken that position during World War II, and they would have been right to say so. They have a special obligation because they have a special understanding of what's going on when it's a genocide. And you don't sit there and say, well, strategically, I kind of want to keep the genocidal war criminal as friends. Not when you're Israel. That's not appropriate. Not appropriate for any of us, but especially Israel. All right, sorry, guys. Let me get to your questions here. Shauna had mentioned about the Pope thing when I was talking about the Pope basically kind of gave Russia a pass and blamed NATO for the invasion. I don't think he's being threatened or extorted. No, I don't know what's going on. I mean, the thing is, look, the Pope is Latin American. He's Argentine. He's political like the rest of us. I mean, the Pope could be one of those people who thinks the West is more antagonistic. I mean, if you're Argentine, Argentines are a little better, but actually not. Argentines too, actually. Latin Americans have a justifiable reason to be suspicious sometimes of Americans and our role in foreign policy around the world, right? We had some bad things we did down in Latin America. So the Pope could be one of those people of a certain generation that still thinks, America and NATO, they mess around with people and they don't care about what people think and stuff. So nonetheless, even if he thinks that legitimately, it's completely inappropriate for him to be doing it right now. Cecil, thank you for the super sticker. And Gerbil, oh boy, Gerbeldral. I'm never going to get that name right. Well, asks on YouTube, how can they punish Russia when the war is over? Oh, and thank you for the great shows. Greeting from the Netherlands. Hello, Netherlands. Staying up late. Thank you. Sorry we're late. It's better on the weekends. We're earlier on the weekends. That explains. It's a Netherlandes name, just to confuse me. Or it could be, if it's Netherlands, then it could be Herbildral? Maybe. Gerbildral. That's going to be my final try. That's the big question. It depends how the war ends with regards to how we can punish Russia when it's over, right? Does Russia win the war? Does Russia lose the war? How badly does Russia lose the war? Is Russia still holding, hello, Puerto Rico? Is Russia still holding Ukrainian territory when the war is over? Or have the Ukrainians pretty much pushed them off of anything? Their military is destroyed. Is Russia threatening to use chemical weapons and nuclear weapons if they really, really lose the war? I mean, is Russia still holding 1 million citizens, which I'm going to get to in a minute. That was my next story. The Russia currently admits that it took 1.1 million Ukrainians to Russia. 1.1 million, okay, including 200,000 children. This is the number that Russia admits. Now, Russia claims, they came willingly. We know from other situations that they, 90% don't come willingly. 90% are forced. We know in Mariupol, most people leaving Mariupol have been forced to go to Russia. Up until now, they've all been forced to go to Russia. It's not their choice. So if he's got 1 million Ukrainians there, he's got them as hostages. And I would almost guarantee you the hostages are being kept there so he doesn't have to pay reparations. So he doesn't have to give up Crimea. He's gonna negotiate with these bodies in the end. Now, the response to that had better be by the West. Okay, you'd like to have crippling sanctions for the rest of Russia's existence? You go for it. But good luck. As your government falls apart over the next several years and your country falls apart. So, but it's very, very dangerous situation. We got more time here. Germany is sending 7 powerful howitzer artillery guns to Ukraine, which is great. It's 7. I wasn't thrilled to see that it's 7, but apparently it is a very powerful artillery that they use that can, I guess, shoot accurately like 25 miles, which I think is 40 kilometers. So it's a great weapon that they're sending, and it's very significant that they're sending the weapon. It just, a few more than 7 would be good, but hey, it's a start. Brittany Griner update. You guys keep asking me what's up with Brittany. I have a Brittany update. One moment. So Brittany Griner, as you know, is the American basketball star female who was kidnapped and taken hostage by the Russians as she was trying to leave the country a couple months ago. Either it was right before the war, right when the war started. And the State Department said today, today's Tuesday, said today that it had determined that Brittany was, quote, wrongfully detained. Now, it sounds kind of silly 2 months later, but it actually is a specific thing in the law or whatever, where the State Department has to go through a process to determine, was this an American arrested for legitimate reasons, like drug use and things like that do happen, and now we got to figure out what to do, or is this someone who was taken hostage by the other government? And this means that the U.S. has officially determined that she was taken hostage. What's interesting is it suggests that they got some kind of evidence or something. To me, that makes me think intel. It makes me think intelligence. It makes me think overhearing phone calls, finding intercepts of communications between the Russians where they admit that they're doing this as a bargaining chip. They admit that they took her hostage. So it may sound insignificant, but I think it is significant because it takes us to a whole new level now. It's no longer we're defending a woman who might have used drugs. they now say there's no way she used drugs. This is a hostage situation. That is, let me see here. That is it for this. I thought briefly, why don't we I'm assuming briefly you guys might want to touch on Roe v. Wade, even though this is our Ukraine podcast. This is a news podcast. I keep calling it TikCast, YouTube cast. Let's just talk briefly about Roe v. Wade, because I will eventually, when the war hopefully is over, switch this to a news story. I believe that's at least my goal, just to a news broadcast. But I want to try to do a news broadcast that still retains some of what we're trying to do with Ukraine, where, thank you, Emily, where we're trying to not make this too left versus right. You know, I like the fact internationally with Ukraine that we've all been kind of, there's some, I mean, Tucker Carlson's an idiot, but beyond Tucker, we've had, you know, most Democrats and most Republicans have in our country, in America, have been amazing coming together on this. And I want to keep doing that, you know, but, so let's talk really quick. So what happened was last night, a draft opinion of the Supreme Court got leaked to Politico, which is a very reputable political publication in Washington, D.C. The way the U.S. Supreme Court works, it's our top court, our top federal court that has ultimate jurisdiction over all the federal courts, but also the state courts. I mean, the Supreme Court can overrule the state courts depending on the issue, but more or less. Well, the way they, like any other court, make a decision, you go, you argue before them. They then, take a vote right afterwards or soon afterwards, but privately. And they see, of the 9 justices, they see who's got the majority. And then once they decide who's got the majority, they say, okay, there were 5 votes for you, 5 votes for this position, or excuse me, 5 on that side, 4 on this side. So that side wins. That side, you pick who among you will write the opinion defending your side. We'll go back and forth. We'll look at it. We among the minority, the 4, we may write our own counter opinion, but it's just a minority opinion. It simply is a dissent. It holds no power, but this can go on for months. Well, what happened was they had the vote. They appointed Alito, who's a conservative justice, to do to write the opinion. And this was about abortion. And somebody leaked the decision, but they leaked it like it may have been a little time ago because I don't know if it was as early as February. The paper has had the decision for a while because they've been trying to confirm it, and they did confirm it. Well, what the decision shows is that they held, thank you, Babel, is that they held the vote right after the arguments. The vote was, I believe, 5-4, 5 saying strike it down entirely, a 6th, Justice Roberts, saying, let's strike some of it down, let's save some of it. And the other 3, the 3 liberals, saying, no, save Roe v. Wade. Now, the impact of this, I just want to make this to just give you guys more background on it, not even political yet. So the impact of this, this decision has not been issued yet. It will not be issued probably until the end of June. That would have been the plan. Usually they wait for June for the really controversial stuff, and they wait for the end of June for the super controversial stuff. This would have been released probably the last day of the session, the end of June, almost guaranteed for the Supreme Court session. But the court experts say, yes, this decision could change, but this means this is what the vote was. I mean, that's what it is. This is the vote. So what this means is, because he's somebody saying, what does it mean? This means at this point, it is almost certain that the Supreme Court is going to strike down Roe v. Wade, which is the right to an abortion in America. When they do that, it does not make abortion illegal because it doesn't work that way. Roe v. Wade was, in essence, protection. Think of it like the police force. If you get rid of the police force, it doesn't mean immediately you're a victim of a crime, but it means you could be. In this case, if Roe v. Wade goes away, we've taken away the protection, and now other people can hurt you. Local courts can go after you. Local state legislatures, federal government can pass laws that all these other bodies of government can now restrict your right to an abortion, when previously Roe v. Wade would have stepped in. The court would have stepped in and said, no, Texas, you're trying to do this. Roe v. Wade says no. Alabama, you want to pass a law that says no woman can get an abortion. Roe v. Wade says no. This means Roe v. Wade is gone. As soon as Roe v. Wade goes away, there are 20 states, about 20 I heard, that have already passed laws. And the law already says that if Roe v. Wade is struck down, our state will immediately ban all abortions. That has already happened in 20 states. So as soon as Roe v. Wade is struck down, most likely June, or almost certainly in June, 20 states, it will be illegal for you to have an abortion. Most of them, I'm assuming, rape and incest as well. That's pretty serious. The next thing that happens is I have like a little list here I made up. You could have a federal ban on abortion, or you could have a federal protection of abortion. Congress could decide, but again, good luck in Congress. Congress could decide that they want to protect abortion nationwide, and Congress could pass a law that the president could sign. The problem is, especially in the US Senate, you need to break a filibuster, and the Republicans say no. And the Democrats don't have enough votes to get it passed. So that's not going to happen. And a federal law can still be repealed by a Republican Congress, right? By an anti-choice Congress, or a pro-life, whatever you want to call it. So that's the first problem. Second of all, I was hearing this today too. Congress could pass laws, when a Republican majority comes, that bans crossing state lines to get an abortion. So not only will a number of states ban abortions, but the Republicans could pass a law at the federal level that says if you are in an anti-abortion state, you cannot cross state lines to go to another state for an abortion, or that's a felony. So that could be a problem. Another thing just to keep in mind, and then I want to talk about the leak really quick. Another thing to keep in mind, the abortion, but a lot of people don't know this. Roe v. Wade is the basis of same-sex marriage decision. Gays got the right to marry because of Roe v. Wade. It was all about sexual privacy, believe it or not. Sodomy. Once upon a time, we had laws in our states. Some states still have the law, even though it can't be enforced. We had laws that literally said people, and I'm trying to I should have even said the S word, because I don't want to, I'm always afraid I'm going to get in trouble with TikTok and YouTube. But basically, I'm trying to think how I can say this. We had laws in the states that said people could not have sex in any other way than the kind you have that causes procreation. If you do any other things with your mouth, for example, it's a crime. And the states literally had this. Well, what happened at a certain point, they weren't arresting straight people, they were only arresting gay people for the crime. And the Supreme Court finally 20 years ago stepped in and said, you really can't do that. And they used Roe again as the privacy basis. So you could have states once again, you will have states once again outlawing sodomy. You will have states once again outlawing same-sex marriage. And if they do, if they do, what will happen is it'll go to the court, and the court is going to look and say, well, Roe v. Wade, not Roe v. Wade, the Obergefell case says that gays can marry. But Obergefell is based on Roe. Roe is no longer law, so there is no case saying gay people can marry. Gay people cannot marry. So you can have gay people either unmarried or no longer able to marry in America. Guess what? Loving v. Virginia could be in trouble. That's the famous American case from 1967 that said that it was illegal to stop Black and white people from intermarrying. Believe it or not, up until 1967 in America, in many parts of America, it was illegal for Black people to marry white people. Believe it or not. I mean, crazy stuff. 1967, crazy stuff. That's in trouble. There's a lot of stuff. People don't realize that it's not just abortion. There are a lot of other issues. And again, contraception becomes its own issue too, because they were trying to ban contraception over the years as well. And that's a whole other issue. In any case, final point I'll say, and let's just go to the Q&A, is the issue of who leaked it is interesting, because there's a big discussion today of, who in the Supreme Court leaked this decision. The thing is, all of us, including me, assumed that it was a liberal staffer or something in the court. But now, thinking about it, people were like, well, it could be, for example, Clarence Thomas is this very conservative justice. His wife is a very, very, I'm trying to say this nicely, very, 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 very Republican activist. Let's put it that way. Pro-Trump, was helping Trump with his claims that the election was stolen. And she's a big Republican activist. Could Clarence Thomas have shown the opinion to his wife to say, oh my God, we did it? Could his wife have shared it with Donald Trump or somebody else to say, oh my God, we did it? Of course she could have. I'm not saying she did, but we don't know. So anyway, I also think it's kind of a secondary issue. I do think it's kind of bad, actually. It's bad to have stuff leak from the Supreme Court because it was one of the last places where we were hoping wouldn't get too political, although it's clearly gotten political, obviously. But nonetheless, I'm a little more worried about the implications nationwide of this decision than I am the fact that somebody told us it's happening. So, all right, I will close with that. Let's go to the questions. As always, like I said, feel free to enter the Q&A questions on the bottom of TikTok. Feel free to, and we can talk about Roe v. Wade. I don't necessarily want this to be the Roe v. Wade show because a lot of people came here to talk about Ukraine. So, I don't mind answering a few questions on it, but I don't want to get into too much. I don't want to get into too much because then we get totally off track. And let's face it, talking about abortion, we very much risk losing that wonderful cohesion we've all been having for 2 months. So I'd like to be careful with that as well. All right, guys, let me jump to TikTok and find a question. May 9th, Nick, the latest we're hearing, Nick Pereira asked what will happen on May 9th. May 9th, as you may recall, is the day that the Russians celebrate their victory in World War II against the Nazis. It's a big thing. Thank you, James. It's a big thing for the Russians. The whole, we beat the Nazi things. It's kind of a national fixation, put it lightly. And it's relevant to them because they're claiming they're fighting Nazis in Ukraine. So Putin wants to do this whole, we fought the Nazis again and won, right? Well, there's a lot of pressure on the Russian troops to win by May 9th. Clearly, that's not happening at this point. I mean, today's the 3rd. It's 6 days away. They're not winning in the next 6 days. And there is increased talk, I heard more about it today, that Putin may declare war on May 9th and have a nationwide mobilization, which basically means a nationwide draft. One analysis I saw today by some military folks was that, as we suspected, a nationwide draft isn't going to solve Putin's problems because he's drafting a lot of people who don't want to be in the military, who aren't professional soldiers, who are only going to go for a year if they're required to go for a year. By the 1 year period that they're there, they only then start to become competent at their jobs. You bring somebody like me into the military as a fighter, it's going to take forever in my case, but it's going to take a good year to get me to the point where I'm good at my job. And after that 1 year, they can go anyway. So not declare war on NATO, declare war on Ukraine. So even if he does that, even if he has a nationwide mobilization with the draft, he's getting people who can't fight, people who don't want to fight, and putting them into a situation with bad leadership, right? With the equipment that's okay in some cases, not okay in others, with horrific logistics, where they're not able to feed their own troops. They're not able to resupply them with fuel. They're not able to resupply them with weapons. So none of those, and one of the things I didn't mention earlier when we were talking about Russia's assault on the East was they're still doing this crazy thing, the Russians are, where they're going after like 5 or 6 things at once. And now they're talking about Transnistria and Moldova. So they're even thinking of adding another target to their list when they're already spread too thin. Having new troops and more troops doesn't help you if your targets are still, if you're focusing on too many targets, you've got bad leadership, bad troops, poor morale, etc. So anyway, that's what's happening on May 9th. Boom. Good question. Roshan. I still have to write. I have to put a little sticky that says, because now I remember at least it's Roshan or Roshan. I'm going to go with Roshan. Roshan asks, did they actually put any thought into their invasion? That's the question. I mean, I remember a couple weeks before, maybe 3 weeks before the invasion, and the U.S. was saying it was looking like Russia was like this was going to happen, right? Because some people were saying the U.S. was crazy. Roshin or Roshin? How's that for a question now? All right, get the accent right too. Roshin. I'm going to stick with Roshin. Let's see if that's right. But the Russians were saying the Russians looked like they were ready to invade, and a bunch of our experts looked at it and said, these guys aren't ready. They don't have enough troops. I mean, we had a bunch of our experts on TV saying they don't have enough troops. What do you know? They didn't have enough troops. So I don't know what thought they put into this. Now, I know what I was going to say. There was a report several weeks before the election, the invasion, that there was an intercept, electronic intercept, eavesdropping of Russian commander on the ground sending a message back to Moscow saying they still didn't have enough troops to start the war. And I remember reading it and going, that's really interesting. They started the war anyway. So, thought went into this invasion, but this sounds to me like it was a Putin special, where Putin was like, I don't care. We're doing it. You get everybody you can. Don't worry. We can win this. And they went in, and so far they're not winning it. That's my guess. But it was Putin's doing. All right, guys, let me pull this up. I'm laughing because, of course, the YouTube folks aren't asking questions. And then in like 5 minutes, there will be 10 of you asking questions, as only the way you YouTube folks can. Will there ever be a world without nukes? I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't know how you uninvent them. I don't know how you get everybody. You'd have to have a world government. I mean, literally a world government where we're all the same country. And then there's no reason to have nukes because, we're not fighting each other. I don't see that happening. Do I think Moldova will get invaded? It's crazy, but it's kind of looking that way, but it's insane. Russia doesn't need another front in this war, but they're acting like it. The only thing is, and I mentioned this the other day, it is possible that Russia is causing all this hell with Moldova and with Transnistria, right? And again, someday people were saying I need to get a map. I will get a map, but it's sort of southwest Ukraine. You'll see Moldova there. And one of the reasons Russia, my dog wants to be covered, okay. One of the reasons Russia is rabble-rousing and threatening to move troops there is because they want Ukraine to move troops there. They want Ukraine to be worried about what's happening next and feel like they've got to move the troops. And what do you know? That's exactly what happened. That Ukraine has now had to move some troops over there that should be fighting at the front, and they're not. Now they're worrying about Moldova. So I thought that was interesting to me that happened. Just to throw that in. Let me see here. Let me see, Christopher. Christopher's asking a Roe v. Wade question. They cannot amend a Supreme Court law like Roe v. Wade to change the time period to 4 months. I'm not sure what your question is. I mean, basically, think of it this way. Roe v. Wade was offering protections for women who wanted to get abortions, saying there are constitutional protections that no law can overrule. So if the Supreme Court says Roe v. Wade no longer exists, then the constitutional protections no longer exist. And now the Congress, state legislatures can all get involved and do things and ban abortion in ways that previously wouldn't have been allowed. So I'm not exactly sure what your question is, but that's how it would work, is the Supreme Court is simply going to throw it out and say Roe v. Wade no longer exists, and states can do whatever they want. But if a state bans abortion and you take it to court, the court has to now look at something else because Roe v. Wade no longer exists. So the court might find their own privacy, argument for preserving abortion, but good luck. It'll probably get overturned, So kind of a mess, very much a mess. Let me grab another TikTok question. I don't know about that. Kremlin on high alert due to coup rumors. I've not heard that. Be nice if it were true. There was talk. I mean, some Democrats have been pushing this notion of Biden adding additional justices to the court. Somebody's asking on TikTok. He can. I've got to double check what the process is. He can do it. I've got to see how it works, though. I don't even know if the president himself can expand the court, but then he'd still have to have the Senate confirm them. And my guess is somebody like Senator, this is getting into American politics here, but somebody like Senator Manchin is going to say, I don't want the court expanded. And if you do, I'm not going to appoint any judges, is my guess. But Biden can. Biden has already expressed that he's not thrilled, meaning before this all happened, he expressed that he was not thrilled with the idea. Nope, I haven't seen anything new on Putin's, Christine's asking anything new on Putin's alleged surgery. The New York Post had reported on some Telegram discussion that Putin supposedly was going to try to get some kind of cancer surgery, but I've seen nothing anywhere official yet. I have seen nothing about Germany warning its people to get food and water for 2 weeks. I'd be surprised. I doubt it. Yeah, we don't hear about the protest in Russia anymore. That's for sure. Remember we did originally. Now, nothing. Oh, thank you, May Carla. I appreciate that. Let me find another TikTok question here. Oops, sorry, just scrolling down. I think that's probably true, Lee. Yeah, Lee Water says that maybe the Russians didn't blow up all the federal buildings in Kyiv, the Ukrainian capital, because they were planning on having a victory parade. I think that's true. I think, at least initially, they were thinking that they were thinking they were going to win in 3 days. Oh, I see. Tyson's got a question here. I'm going to go back and find Tyson's question. That they were thinking of winning in 3 days. So they probably wanted the town to look spiffy so they could be like, oh, we've taken over. Our person is now president. Look at Kyiv. It's perfect. We've done nothing. There's no problem. But what's interesting me is that stopped a long time ago. Clearly, they're not taking over Kyiv anytime soon. So why aren't they trying to go after the government ministries and blow them up and make it harder for the government to organize? I don't know. I mean, it just seems odd to me, but I'm glad they're not doing it. It just seems odd to me, Tyson Ann, good to see you. What if Putin just claims a victory by May 9th just to avoid more embarrassment? I mean, that would be great. Well, here's the thing. Okay, let's say he does. So let's say May 9th comes and Putin says, we've achieved our goals. We have denazified the government. We have destroyed, not true, but we've destroyed the Ukrainian military. They now don't pose a threat to Russia. And we're going to keep the lands we've taken and the war is over. The problem is Ukraine is going to say, good for you. Take your troops and go home, and we're going to use the new artillery and drones we got from America and Europe, and we're going to blow the hell out of you, is what Ukraine's going to go. So the war isn't going to end. I mean, the Russians can go, but Ukraine's going to keep hitting with artillery, keep hitting them with planes, keep blowing up their bridges, keep blowing up their oil depots, and keep blowing up their troops and advancing to kick them out of Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. So that's the only problem with Putin declaring victory is he's not ahead. If Putin were ahead, it'd be one thing, right? If the war turned out the way we thought it might, which was, oh my God, Putin invades, he's going to take over, he's going to run everything, and it's going to basically be Putin being nice, saying, I'm not going to take over your whole country. Crimea, what happened in Crimea in 2014? Where basically he took over and there wasn't anything the Ukrainians can do. This time there is something the Ukrainians can do, and they've got the entire world on their side. And the final point is, if Putin were to do this and say, oh, I declare victory, war's over, the West can still say, no, it's not. We're not lifting sanctions until you get your butt out of Ukraine entirely. So the war doesn't really end, but especially because Ukraine's just going to keep hitting them. Ukraine's going to be like, okay, great, good, stop fighting. We'd love you to stop fighting while we just continue to blow you up. So yes, I don't think so. Interesting. Maybe Flint Reed asks, is it possible the explosions in Russia, because there's been there's been explosions, but there's been a lot of fires and things too, are, thank you, Christy, for that, my favorite. Is it possible the explosions in Russia are false flags to gin up locals to hate the Ukrainians more? It's possible some are. I think, Ashley, thank you. Some of these things are clearly the Ukrainians doing, right? I mean, like pretty much everyone's thought that these attacks happening in Belgorod, which is sort of to the northeast, Kharkiv, 10 miles to the Russian border, 10 more miles in the Russian town of Belgorod, like right there. The experts all think that what's going on there, oil depots blowing up, ammunition depots blowing up, right? That kind of stuff, it's the Ukrainians. You're getting fires and things happening across the country, fires at weapons plants, these kind of things. They can be accidents because the Russians apparently are just horrific with safety, but they could be Russian false flags. A false flag meaning the Russians are doing it themselves and using it to scare their people about how bad the Ukrainians are. We know, for example, that the Ukrainians, I mentioned this the other day, the Ukrainians arrested 2 people who were apparently, they say, part of a Russian false flag to shoot down a civilian airliner, either a Russian or a Belarusian civilian airliner, over Russian territory or over Belarus, kill everybody, use a Stinger missile, which are the shoulder-held American anti-aircraft missiles, use a Stinger missile and blame it on Ukraine. And the idea, I'm guessing, the idea there would be to really piss off Russians about how evil the Ukrainian war criminals are, and it might galvanize the Russian people more into the feeling they have a stake in this war. It might galvanize the soldiers into feeling that they have a stake, because currently Ukraine isn't killing Russians back home. I mean, they're not. They're blowing up some oil depots, but they're not doing what the Russians are doing. What the Russians are doing is making the Ukrainians angry and fight even harder. That's not happening back there. So if you say the Ukrainians intentionally blew up a civilian airliner, now the Russian troops are angry and fighting for their own people. So that's what I think is going on. So it's possible too with some of the fires, they're doing the same thing. It's possible. Could Putin's serious illness be bad for Ukraine? It could. It could. In other words, if Putin were seriously ill, could it be bad? Sure. A couple ways. What if his illness is literally making him crazy? Like he's losing his ability to think properly. He's losing, it's making him angrier and more paranoid, right? That would be dangerous because I do not think Putin is ready to use nuclear weapons, but if he's crazy, literally crazy, he might, right? So that's a problem. Some people worry that if like he were on his deathbed and dying, that he might be willing to use, nuclear weapons and this kind of stuff. I don't agree as long as he's not crazy. Because think about this. If you're the leader of a country and he wants to be the best leader ever of Russia, he wants to, eat Ukraine up and make it part of Russia in some heroic historical move. His goal isn't to destroy Russia. His goal is to save Russia. He doesn't save it on his deathbed by starting a nuclear war that kills everybody in Russia. That doesn't work. So him dying, unless he were crazy, literally him dying, he wouldn't want to take all of Russia with him. It just doesn't make sense. So I don't see it bad in that regard. The other issue is if Putin is dying, who comes next? And that's something you've always got to worry about. It's something they always tell you to worry about with assassinations and things. I mean, assassinations aren't legal by U.S. law, but the part of what you've got to worry about in taking out Saddam Hussein in Iraq, taking out Gaddafi in Libya, Putin in Russia. When you take out a dictator, however, or the dictator takes out himself by dying, being sick, or the military takes him out in a coup, you've got to worry about who comes next. And just because a bad guy goes doesn't mean a better guy comes. Also, you have the Iraq problem. Remember, initially, there were concerns about Iraq breaking into 3 regions. And one was going to become part of Iran. One was going to become, I think, part of Syria. The north, I don't know if it would become part of Turkey or even part of the Kurds unifying and then trying to break away from Turkey and all sorts of problems. So you can have stuff like that happen if a strong man leads. All of a sudden, he was the glue holding the country together and the country falls apart. Sure, in principle, it's good if your enemy falls apart, but not always, right? Because your enemy has nuclear weapons and it could start a civil war and who knows what happens. Wars on the borders, so things like that. Let me just make sure it didn't have. Let me grab another TikTok comment and then I'll get to, because Tina had a nice comment I like there. Let me get a TikTok comment here. Tina on YouTube. Ukraine should attack Russia's May 9th parade. It would be funny if they did something. I don't know what, but when I say funny, I mean it would be amazing politically for Ukraine to do something to that parade. Would really show chutzpah. I'll use the Yiddish word again. Britain is sending anti-air tanks to Ukraine. I saw they were sending more stuff because, Yeltsin. I'm calling Yeltsin Johnson. Boris. I'm thinking Yeltsin. Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, spoke to the Ukrainian Parliament today and promised more aid. And I didn't see what, but one of it must have been anti-air tanks that go after aircraft, which is similar to what the Germans are sending, I believe, the Gepards. What will I do when this over? Christopher asks, I think I'm going to move this, like I said, to maybe a news thing, to make it more about news, like what we just did with Roe v. Wade, but try to find 1 or 2 big news stories a day and talk about them. I won't be able to have the Q&A be about every news story out there because I can't be ready for that ever. But maybe today could have been Roe v. Wade day, and we could have talked about Roe v. Wade. I would have done more research on Roe v. Wade, so I could have given you 20 minutes of analysis and what people are saying, and then we could have had a much bigger discussion about where it goes. Now, again, we'll have to see because I can't be an expert on every topic every day, but it'd still be interesting if I could try to figure out how to make it sort of a news show. I think would be fun. Well, it can. So Grassfed asks on TikTok, pull up this question. On TikTok, Yiddish, exactly, Flint. And we're talking about Zelensky, so I love using Yiddish to talk about Zelensky. I think it's fabulous. Grassfed asks on YouTube, on TikTok, will overturning Roe v. Wade change the abortion decision, change things for Democrats in the midterm elections, which are this fall? So this fall, in November, we have the off-year elections. So the presidential elections are every 4 years. So 2020 and 2024 are our presidential elections. Our congressional elections, it's a little complicated, but every 2 years we have congressional elections. In the House of Representatives, everyone is up for election every 2 years. So all of them, all 435 of them are up for election every 2 years. In the Senate, there's 100 senators. A third of them, they serve for 6-year terms, and a third of them are up for election every 2 years. So every 2 years, 33 or so of them are up for election, and then the next 2 years, another 33, and the next 2 years, 34, and it continues like that. So every 2 years there are elections, but they have a term for 6 years. So this year is not presidential; it's the just congressional elections. But what's important about it is all the polls have been showing that Republicans, in principle, should. Now this is early because this is April, May now. The elections aren't until November. But the polls are showing at this point that Republicans are positioned to win control of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate, of both bodies of Congress. Biden would still say president for 2 more years. So what is interesting is this could change everything. Yes, you could argue that this may excite the Republican base to turn out to the polls. More likely, it's going to incite the left, the Democratic base, to be way more upset. Women, possibly independents. It all depends over the next 8 months how this is treated by both political parties. But one interesting thing on that note is that it was very interesting that today you saw a lot of Democrats speaking out against the decision. You did not see a lot of Republicans defending it. Meaning you would, not Mitt Romney, but Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, his statement had 2 parts. One part said, it's horrific that this opinion was leaked. This person should be found and prosecuted. It's a crime. He was angry. The other part, whatever the court decides to do on abortion is their own decision. They should make their own decision. He didn't even say hooray, right? The Republicans, what a lot of analysts think is that the Republican base or anti-abortion activists are they want Roe v. Wade struck down. They want abortion to be illegal. But that a lot of Republicans have been using abortion as a political issue, but that they never really wanted abortion to be outlawed because A, they then lose the political issue, and B, it then really screws up. I do not practice. No, it then really screws up their election plans, because now you've given Democrats, Democratic women, and even people who are independent. Oh, hello from Kyiv. Hey, Olya. Somebody from Kyiv is, sorry, I have to stop here. Somebody from Kyiv is weighing in on TikTok. Olya. TikTokers, send Olya some sunflowers, please. That's what we do. Olya, welcome. I've got YouTubers here too. They throw sunflowers, throw Olya some sunflowers on YouTube. They're throwing sunflowers to you too. You can't see it, but they're there. Welcome. It's late there for you. Thank you for joining us. I know. Okay. Typically, the Ukrainians are 8 hours ahead, so it's probably 2 a.m. there. In any case, there you go. Thank you, Evolving, for the hat and mustache. Let me see here. Tina, here we go. Tina had an interesting question. So Tina, it says, if Russia will use tactical nuclear weapons or biological weapons against Ukraine, how fast would NATO respond, and what are they going to do? That's the question. That's the question. I saw a big New York Times reporter, David Sanger, on CNN yesterday, I think, or Sunday, on the Sunday shows. And, Odessa. Wow, we got a couple of you guys here. Who said they're from Odessa? Who said? Chili's in Odessa. Look at you. Thanks, guys. We usually get several Ukrainians, but and of course we have our usual Ukrainians on YouTube. I saw John DS weighing in and speaking Ukrainian with somebody else, so that always Solomia is here too. Hi, Solomia. Good to see you too. So yes, we have our couple of Ukrainians on YouTube already. Now we got a few more on TikTok. Lovely. Good to see you guys. So this New York Times reporter, David Sanger, who's a big deal on international writing and things. And Sanger is talking about if Russia were to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine. And he says, basically, if Russia were to use nuclear weapons, I think it's pretty much guaranteed that Biden would hit Putin with more sanctions. And I heard that and I was like, if Vladimir Putin nukes Ukraine, we're gonna hit Putin with tougher economic sanctions? Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? So, I think the jury is still out a little bit. If that were true, that would be a horrible message to send Putin. Hi, England. Thanks for joining us. That would be a horrible message to send Putin. That, hey, if you can hang on to a little bit more, if you can hang on a little bit more to, what am I going to say here? Oh, to the economic sanctions. If you can hold out a little bit longer with the economic sanctions, feel free to go ahead and nuke them. That's crazy. Same thing with biological or chemical weapons. NATO would have to do something immediately. The question becomes what? The concern for NATO is always going to be militarily. If Putin does this, do they then turn and hit the? Do they then turn and blow up something of the Russians in Ukraine? Right? I don't know. I mean, it's very, but nuclear, we have to become involved in the war. There's no choice. Whether it means we put up the no-fly zone, we do something, but I think he uses nukes and forget it. Because if he uses nukes in Ukraine, he could use nukes in Poland. I mean, then all bets are off. Chemical and biological weapons are the ones that I think are going to be more interesting in terms of whether people kind of wimp out a little bit. And that I don't know. Syndicate. Have you seen the Russian flyers calling for the denazification of Sweden? No, it's all over bus stops in Russia. The denazification of, oh, well, okay. Oh my God, they're such idiots. No, I didn't see that. Russia seems determined to convince Sweden to join NATO. Thank you, Apple user, for that. Seems determined to convince Sweden to join NATO. That's what's going on. Russia thinks if they threaten Sweden enough, Sweden will get scared and not join NATO. The problem is, it seems pretty clear. It seems pretty clear that Finland is going to join NATO. That everyone seems to think. Oh, hey, Marion, you're here today. I'll pull yours up in a second. It seems pretty clear that Finland's going to join NATO. If Finland does, Sweden is going to feel even more pressure to join because they're going to feel isolated, like they're on their own. They're the last remaining country up there that isn't a member, and to protect themselves, they need to, right? Russia keeps invading Sweden airspace. Now Russia, by putting up these flyers saying they're going to denazify Sweden, they're literally saying we're going to invade Sweden and bomb them and commit war crimes like we did in Ukraine. If I were Sweden, I'd go, well, I guess the only way, thank you, May, for that. I guess the only way to stop that is joining NATO. And then Russia can't bomb me. So it's incredibly stupid, but it shows that Russia is still it shows that Russia is still sticking with this strategy of bluffing and threatening and thinking that with their bluster they're going to scare all of us. And it's not working. And it finally collapsed last week, I think. Last week was it. They threatened to nuke England. Did they go after Finland the week before? Now they're threatening Sweden. It just became, they mentioned Germany, they mentioned Poland. It just became a joke at that point. And finally, I think the Germans kind of, Biden clearly had it. Boris Johnson had it a long time ago. And you're finally, I think, seeing the West go, you know what? A, you're the Nazis. B, you're war criminals. C, you're committing genocide. And D, you talk a lot. Like, you're bluffing. You're talking. Thank you for that. You're talking a lot and not doing. And I think you're bluffing. So the Russians screwed themselves on this. But yeah, by going after Sweden, they're convincing Sweden to join NATO, which is great. And we should find out. Hell, we could find out in the next 2 weeks. Marion, thank you for this. The U.S. just declared. Oh, I mentioned that you're joining us late. I mentioned that. I don't know if I mentioned you I don't think I mentioned you. I was being nice. When I brought up Brittany Griner earlier, I was going to say, and my friend Marion will be happy I'm finally bringing up Brittany, but I did. I mentioned her, wrongfully detained. What happens now? What will it take to get her released? Can the International Olympic Committee provide leverage? Sorry, I just had to laugh at that one. She's won 2 gold medals for Team USA. Yes, Team USA and the International Olympic Committee, the great defenders of international human rights. You know, thank you, Heart and Hogs, for that. There's no way they're going to stand up to Russia. Maybe the U.S. committee might. The international couldn't give a damn. You know that. Look what happened with that poor. Was she a tennis champion in China? That the International Olympic Committee even got up there and said, "We talked to her. She's fine. She's not being pressured." And we're like, "Oh, okay, good for you." What's interesting with this, exactly? I'd wash hands of them. What is interesting with this, Marion? I was saying earlier that I was reading that. Brittany Griner is the American basketball player who was playing for a team, I think in St. Petersburg. Thank you, Pamela, for that. And when she was leaving the country, the Russians kidnapped her and are trying to use her. Well, they're basically using her as a hostage somehow to help with the war. Who knows? What was interesting is the State Department determined today, after 2 months, that she was wrongfully detained. And I was reading that it is a legal determination or something by the State Department, and it officially transfers the domain of her case from consular services, which deals with Americans who get into trouble abroad, to a special team that deals with hostages, I believe was the term. So that it is an official thing that actually changes the entire negotiation, the way the U.S. treats it. It also is based on some kind of, it's not just something the U.S. says. It's based on an investigation, which means State Department did some kind of investigation the last 2 months that some evidence led them to conclude that she is innocent and she is being taken as a hostage. That to me was interesting because I read that and I immediately thought, okay, they've got something classified. I mean, she can say I didn't do it, but they've got something classified. If it led them to say, we know she was not doing drugs and we know Russia did this to take her hostage and to use her as a bargaining chip, to me, it means they overheard some kind of Russian communications or something else. But yeah, International Olympic Committee, screw them. You know, the problem is she's going to be like any other hostage. We still got the other hostage. The one guy, Trevor Reed was his name, I think, who was able to get out. We still had several other hostages over there Yes, we had several others in Russia we've got, let alone her. I think there might be 2 other guys, maybe one other guy, 2. So I who knows? I mean, you'd think she's going to become part of you would think she'd become part of the settlement of the war, maybe, or the Russians at least will try to make it that way. You know, they'll make it that way because the fact that they've got an American who's gay, you know, I mean, being gay is one of their big things they love to beat people up with. So it's not good. Let me see here. PB, why doesn't Ukraine send some troops to Mariupol? Are there that many Russian troops surrounding it? I'm sure the Ukrainians had troops in Mariupol because they were fighting this whole time. And then the troops were getting defeated and they finally, they had to pull back. And finally, you've got the remaining troops there. What I was reading was the part of the issue now becomes, do you move people back there or are other places more important? Oh, is John D going to bed? Bye, John D. I know it's late for you out there. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Thanks for joining us again. But my suspicion is the Ukrainians have to make a decision as to whether it makes sense strategically to try to take Mariupol back, or does it make more sense to fight the Russians in the east and basically destroy their big maneuvers they're doing out there, right? So that's my guess. Mariupol matters, but I mean, the civilian thing is horrible, but if you put all this military force to win Mariupol because of the 100,000 civilians, think how many more civilians are going to die because Russia wins the east now and starts advancing to Kyiv, right? So anyway, that's my take on it. Can the filtration camps be liberated? Again, same problem. They would have to bomb them, and they could bomb them, but I mean, Well, first of all, maybe they can bomb them, right? It's not totally clear because neither the Ukrainians nor the Russians control the skies. So they can try to bomb them with artillery, but are they close enough? Because artillery typically goes 25 miles, 40 kilometers. Is that close enough? Anyway, unfortunately, our troops do not need to stay in the area. Not sure what that means, PB. Write me a little more explaining that. I don't know what that means. Let me look for another TikTok question. TikTokers. Oh, did you say are Russian saboteurs striking inside? Oh, are Russian saboteurs striking inside Russia? I don't know. I'd hope so. I'm not convinced. I think it'd be great, but I'm not convinced, you know? But it'd be neat if there was. I haven't seen anything that like confirms it. Oops, sorry, I'm trying to find my. Well, they're not going to destroy the UK. Russia's not going to destroy the UK. I've talked about this before. Russia talked about destroying the UK, but they were doing it to, I think, try to scare British people into becoming pacifists and say, oh, the Russians are threatening to kill us. Maybe we shouldn't support the war, Boris Johnson, right? Which is bullshit. Sorry, BS. They also are doing it for their own people at home. They're trying to, yay, our president and our foreign, whoever, our leaders are talking about nuking the West. Yay, build up morale at home because that apparently goes over really well in Russia. Here, people would be mortified. If our leaders were saying, let's nuke Russia, people would be mortified. I mean, Reagan did it. Reagan said it as a joke and people got upset, right? There, it's like, oh, yes, good job. The thing is, and I've said this before, you should never worry about Russia attacking us with nukes because we in America and the Brits have many, 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 many nuclear weapons on submarines. And they're on probably sea-launched ballistic missiles and sea-launched cruise missiles, I'm going to guess. I used to know back in the day. But they've got missiles on the subs. The subs are underwater. The subs cannot be found. It is nearly impossible. There's about 14. I Googled the other day. I think the U.S., for example, has 14 submarines that have nuclear weapons on them. They're hidden in the sea. No one's going to find them. Russia could bomb America and destroy every living person in the United States. And after they were done, our submarines would launch all their missiles and destroy every person in Russia. So, and the Brits have got, I think, all, if not most of their nuclear weapons on submarines as well. Russia's never attacking England. It's never attacking America with nukes. Unless literally, like we said, crazy person takes over. But otherwise, this kind of, maybe we will just attack you. This is what I'm saying, like from a Western perspective of somebody who knows what's going on, it's scary because they're nutsy cuckoo to be saying it, but it's also laughable because it's a big threat that means nothing, Okay, here's what PB was trying to say, I think. Parliament green lights deploying territorial defense units in war zones. I saw that. I didn't know what it meant, though, like what the point was. Ukraine's parliament voted to allow to fight outside their assigned regions. I just don't know what the point is of that. I mean, I know the territorial defense unit is this sort of civilian-based military unit. I couldn't tell if it was like the Carabinieri in Italy. I wasn't quite. I mean, I've known about them, but I never understood what they are. And I saw that story today, but again, I don't know the significance. Like what? Where were the territorial defense units not fighting in war zones before? What were they doing? Were they simply being used like when the Russians fire a missile at a school? Would the territorial defense units go to the school to try to help? Like I don't understand. I don't understand unless now it's saying that they weren't using them directly in war and now maybe they will. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. It could, like in Russia's case, the more they turn to people who aren't qualified, in Russia's case, it's a sign that the Russians are running out of manpower. Thank you, Hugues. Oh, Hugues. I have a good friend in France named Hugues. He plays with the French, the French National Radio Symphony, I believe. Good guy. Hugues. So I learned to pronounce his name. But in any case, yeah, I'd have to know how it works, but sometimes that can be a sign that they don't have enough manpower. Oh, hang on here. Did I? Okay, I do here. Sorry, Lori, almost lost you there. Sorry, there we go. Let me know if I don't think I've got anybody else backed up on super questions. If I am, let me know. Oh, Facebook. Hello, Becklin. Somebody on Facebook finally said hi. I don't think we've ever had anybody on Facebook say hi. Thanks, Becklin. Hopefully you're real and not a troll, but we've never had somebody from Facebook here, I think. So Lori Keene asks, and mind you, we've only got a couple more minutes, guys. So if you got questions, get them in now, because I'm going to close this in about a minute or two, I think. Unless they're super chat questions, then, I always answer those anyway. At some point, will the families of the fallen Russian troops finally wake up to the truth? You've gone this far without a single yawn, and I'm proud of it. I know, I'm not as yawny today. I don't know that I slept better, but whatever. See, now you're saying it, I'm going to yawn, Lori. Thanks a lot. At some point, will the families of the fallen Russian troops wake up? Hard to say. Somebody had said something a couple weeks ago, an American, and I thought it was a very good observation. And they said, with 20 years of us being in Iraq and Afghanistan, both wars ended up being, I will say both wars didn't go well. You didn't see a lot of families. Thank you, Tyler, for that on TikTok. You didn't see a lot of families standing up and speaking out because, it's their sons and daughters who died there, right? They felt like they'd feel like they were speaking out against their own children. You saw some, but not really, right? So they were saying sort of the same thing about Russia. Like, from an outside perspective, you'd think they might, but from their perspective, it still feels like you're almost defaming your fallen kid by saying think about it too, because you'd literally have to be saying, like, this was wrong, this was worthless, they died needlessly, they gave their life for nothing. I mean, those are things you don't want to say about your own kid, and you typically don't want to say it in your own country either, right? Politically. So having said all of that, the moms really spoke out during sorry, my head is itching and my hair is going crazy. The moms really spoke out during the Afghan invasion, and that made a big difference, made a huge difference. So you could have the same thing happen there. They've lost probably more troops. We think our assessment is they've lost more troops, the Russians did, in the first month of the war than they lost in Afghanistan in 10 years. And now that those bodies are going back, now that the families are finding out these kids are dead, you'd think it's going to start building up some, if it's not opposition to the war, at least a sense of, what the hell did you do? You got us into the, yes, they're Nazis. Yes, we had to stop the Nazis. And you did such a back-assed, right? Screwed up war. You did the worst war possible and screwed it up and wasted my kid's life. That could happen, where you say, yes, this was a just war, and you ran it unjustly, and you got my kid killed, and my kid should not have been. My kid should not have been killed, because had the war been run well, he wouldn't have been. So maybe the families could skirt the thing sort of that way to a bit, right? Anyway, Jeff Clark, another Facebook. Look at all the Facebookers suddenly weighing in. We never see you guys weigh in from Facebook. It's just funny to see the comments. Welcome. Maybe Facebook has decided they suddenly want to promote the broadcast. I don't know. It's funny. All right, guys, this is it. I usually hang out for about 5 to 10 minutes afterwards. So we're going to do that, but we've been going for an hour and 22 minutes now. So that's the extent of my stamina. But don't laugh at Facebook. Don't laugh at Facebook. I still use Facebook. It's still, obviously, politics, it's useful or bad, depending how you look at it. So yeah, we're going to hang out for another probably 5-10 minutes, just us hanging. That's what we do every time. And feel free to join us. Who can comment on this post? I did not limit. Get out of here. I didn't. Oh, I certainly didn't. Really? Oh, that's interesting. Now you got me. Well, now that we've sort of ended the show, Yuan or Johan. That's right. I keep thinking maybe you're a Johan. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Anyway, guys, let's hang and chat. I'm actually going to pull up Facebook now and see if I can on my iPad, because maybe it's posting it funny. I don't know. That's annoying. Now, I do use this centralized app called StreamYard, or a website, and I pay like $50 a month to do this, but it allows me to, TikTok is still independently. So TikTok I've got to do on its own with you guys through my phone, but the YouTubers and the Facebookers and Twitterers, I can use my web browser, and it goes to all three at once. Actually, it can go to several of my Facebook page limits posts. Let me go. I'm really annoyed. Oh, now Facebook's trying to download. What are you doing, Facebook? How annoying. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to. Now, this may be because I've posted it through this service, which is actually really, I've been kind of wondering why Facebook hasn't been having many posts. But how did you guys get through? I'm glad you did, but somehow this is the first time I've seen any of you Facebookers get through. Hold on. Oh, come on. And I told you I am totally going to buy a new, come on. Oh my God. I've got to buy a new one. My iPad is 7 years old. And it's a little slow. It's just a little slow. There we go. I typed in face. It took 5 seconds for it to pull up Facebook. Let's see. It was downloading. Hopefully it's finished downloading. But yeah, let me see what it says here. I can't do it on my computer until I'm gone, because I've learned before that when I basically when I switch out of the browser, it freezes you guys it freezes you guys here. So I've learned that I better not do that. And the same thing on TikTok. Oh, come on. Oh my God, it's not going to open it. All right, let me find Facebook here. Come on, Facebook. I'm going to have to identify you with my eyes. I hate trying to find things. Oh God. Trying to find apps with your eyes is like the least fun thing. You know what I mean? On the iPad or the iPhone, the apps are just the hardest thing. No, I had Facebook at the front. I know it. Here it is. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. Let's see if it lets me in. That's going to be the next fun thing. It probably logged me out or something. We shall see. Anyway, this is the part where we just hang out and chat, guys. So thus the reason I'm wasting time going on Facebook. It's what we do this time of the show. You're watching through TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. That's kind of creepy. All three at once. Oh, and now it crashed. Don't give me that. Here we go. Now it's trying. John, that's me. Yes. Log me in. Oh, my password. Okay, I knew it's going to be a pain in the ass. All right. Let me see here. Oh, password. So not fun. Not going to tell you all what my password is. That's for sure. Come on. All right. Ugh. I've got to do lots of little things to make this work. Anyway, keep chatting amongst yourselves. We're just hanging so I can see what's going on. And then, Mom, we're finally having our Costco tortellini tonight, so that'll be good. Here we go. All right. Let me open up my password thingy here. Oh, will that work? Maybe. Let's see. Maybe. Okay. Seriously? To verify, enter the code from Google Authenticator. I can't because it's on my... Okay. Well, we'll have to wait. Google Authenticator is on my phone, and it's currently doing TikTok. All right, I'll have to check Facebook when we're done. I'll write myself a note. That's annoying about the comments. Moving you to my YouTube so I can watch. Yep, my friend Marion watches it on the big screen as well, which I realized the other day when she showed me her dog flipping out because I squeaked my dog's ball, and Marion's dog was sleeping, woke up and was like, eh. It was very cute. Facebook comments. Weird. My guess is, again, because I use the centralized service to set it up. Otherwise, if I don't, I can't screen. I wouldn't be able to screen it. I would have only been able to do one on my computer and one on my phone, which currently is YouTube and TikTok. I wouldn't even be able to do Facebook. So kind of annoying. Anyway, I've not had chocolate in a while. We've got a new microwave. Thank God our microwave died. So we've got that. And my brother-in-law still has to install it because it's too heavy for me to pick up. But I'm very excited because I can finally make my chocolate mug cake, which I've talked about before. I've got a cake, not a cake. It's almost like a fudgy, brownie, gooey, chocolatey thing. That's very easy. You make it in a mug, and it's actually good. I've tried several of them that weren't as good. This recipe's finally good. It's great on its own, but it's really good with ice cream, with vanilla ice cream. Oh my God. And it's almost brownie, chocolate, gooey, hot fudge. Oh, like a molten cake of what moelleux in French, basically. Oh my God, it's so good. I am using a website called StreamYard. So STREM yard.com. And they've got different payment levels. I mean, I'm paying $50 a month because I'm streaming it on 1, 2, 3, 4 Facebook pages, because I had like one for my blog and like this different kind of stuff, right? On 1 YouTube, on and 3 Twitters, because I got 3 Twitter accounts, one for me, one for each of my, like my blogs. So yeah, like a lava cake, basically. So this allows me to stream to 8 places. I could also do Twitch. I tried Twitch and it didn't get me anywhere. I could do LinkedIn, but it said I have to I'm not approved yet because I don't use LinkedIn enough. It's true. I don't put up regular updates on LinkedIn. I have to put up regular updates, but that's interesting too. But I've got to go back and look to see how many people I'm getting. I know TikTok is the most. I know I do pretty well on YouTube, but beyond that, Facebook's been very difficult, and Twitter, who knows? I have no idea how many folks watch on Twitter. I just put it up because I've got a big Twitter following, so there's always a decent chance I've got them there. And for example, it'll let me, interesting, because I can post on Facebook, but I can only post on Facebook and YouTube. I can't post on the other ones. And I can't post, this is funny too, I can't post on my main John Aravosis Facebook, which is funny. I can only post on it's confusing. I've got 4 Facebook pages. Like I said, life is confusing. All right, guys, I think I'm going to call it quits so Mom and I can have I will give the mud cake recipe. Actually, I will film it when the microwave gets installed. I will finally film making the recipe because it's very easy. 400 per day on Twitter watching for me? Or what do you mean? Are you able to see how many are watching? I can't even tell how many are watching. Go to your apps and web pages on Facebook and click view and edit for StreamYard. Oh, okay. I'll check. Huh. I'll show you guys. Don't worry. I've got the recipe. I'll do a video and show you, but I'll talk. I've talked through it the other day. So I want to thank you. Thank you, Christy. The little good night cute thing. Thank you for that. I always love that. Where's the apps and websites page on Facebook? Click view and edit for. Oh, I see. Oh, that's interesting. Let me, well, you know what I'll do? I'm going to save that one. Okay, I'm saving your comment. Apps and website pages on Facebook. Click view and edit for StreamYard. If you don't see StreamYard listed, it may be under the business integration tab. Okay, because maybe that's the problem. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Sorry, YouTubers. I've been looking down at the screen. TikTokers. I've been looking down at the screen trying to figure this out. Thank you, everybody. Exactly. Thank you, mods. Thank you for all the super chat questions and the super stickers, like from Johan there. And obviously all the TikTok things. You guys are amazing. I always appreciate you giving me the gifts on there too. So thank you. Victoria with the roses. And yeah, I'm going to hang up. I'm just saying, I'll give you a happy tortellini time. Exactly. I'm giving it like half a minute so that it catches up a little bit because TikTok is always a little bit behind. All right. Yeah. YouTubers, I'm going to say goodbye and I will definitely go to Facebook and see if I can fix that because that would be nice. I had no idea you guys couldn't. I just figured nobody was watching. That's the funniest thing. I mean, it's nice to know you were watching because it's just nice to know. I had no idea. All right. YouTubers, I'm hanging up on you. Tomorrow, same time as always, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern.